The snow has started falling across Minnesota, covering the cracks, covering the broken promises, and covering the truth that is now finally rising to the surface. Billions meant for children were taken. Fraud warnings inside the state government were ignored, and now families in St. Paul are waking up to sirens, rising violence, and a feeling that something has slipped out of control. Today we look at what is happening in the North, because Minnesota is not just another state with another scandal. Minnesota is a signal, a warning flare, a mirror showing America what happens when government forgets its first duty to protect its people, safeguard public trust, and defend the values that hold a constitutional republic together. This is not politics as usual. This is not a local problem. This is the truth every American deserves to hear.
Cold air rising from the northern night, Minnesota standing in a troubled light. Voices calling from a breaking line. Truth is waiting on the other side of time. Hold your ground, listen close. This is where the story grows. Welcome to Go Ride with Peter Boykin, where the truth cuts through the noise we live in. Stand strong, stay clear, this is where the fight begins. Welcome to Go Ride with Peter Boykin.
Welcome back to Hashtag Go Right with Peter Boykin. Today we're diving into one of the most important stories breaking across America. It starts in Minnesota, but the warning it carries is national. It is about corruption, immigration, accountability, and the simple truth that a constitutional republic cannot survive if its government forgets its first responsibility. This episode will break it all down, so let us begin. Minnesota is at the center of what may be one of the largest welfare fraud operations in American history. The nonprofit Feeding Our Future was supposed to provide food for children across the state during the pandemic. Instead, investigators say billions of dollars were shipped or siphoned into fake meal claims, shell companies, luxury items, and in some cases, overseas networks. Dozens have been convicted. Dozens more face charges. And the biggest question remains, how did this happen? Whistleblowers inside Minnesota's Department of Education say they raised the alarm early. They say warnings were ignored. They say leadership failed to act. And now Governor Tim Walz, ain't that tampon Timmy, is facing intense pressure as federal agencies, including the United States Treasury Department, review how his administration handled the crisis. This is not a paperwork error. This is a collapse of oversight. A government that cannot safeguard public funds cannot safeguard public trust. The scandal has triggered a wave of arguments surrounding Minnesota's Somali refugee community. Some national voices and political figures have used this moment to paint entire groups as responsible. Now that's not justice, that's not truth, and that is not America. Criminals who participated in fraud must be prosecuted. Communities that had nothing to do with it must not be punished for the actions of individuals. Things could be said for a lot of other things that people scapegoat others into. But here is the reality. Political leaders refuse to acknowledge. When government oversight collapses, when warnings are dismissed, and when criminals exploit the system, suspicion grows, distrust grows, and division grows. And once again, Minnesota's leaders refuse to confront real problems directly. Their political defensiveness only fuels the fire. This is a failure of government, not a failure of a community. While corruption dominates the headlines, Minnesota faces a separate crisis. Crime is rising. Fresh shootings in St. Paul have shaken families once again. Citizens are noticing something their leaders will not say. Their communities do not feel safe. Government has a basic duty in a constitutional republic. That's protecting life, protecting liberty, protecting property. That is the foundation. If the streets are not safe, if the government cannot secure neighborhoods, if citizens are left wondering who is in control, then the social contract has been broken. Minnesota is not facing one scandal. Minnesota is facing a series of failures all at once, and the rest of the country should be paying attention. We'll be right back with my hashtag #GoRight commentary. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to check out this article and more on GoRightNews.com.
Cold air rising from the northern light. Minnesota standing in a troubled light. Voices calling from a breaking line. Truth is waiting on the other side of time. Hold your ground, listen close. This is where the story grows. Welcome to Go Right with Peter Boykin, where the truth cuts through the noise we live in. Stand strong, stay clear. This is where the fight begins. Welcome to Go Right with Peter Boykin. Peter Boykin, your place for truth when the world keeps spinning. Go right for liberty, for liquor. Welcome to Go Right. Welcome to Go Right. America.
Welcome back to hashtag Go Right with Peter Boykin. This is my commentary. So let us take a deep breath and speak honestly about what is happening. Not the filtered version. Not the political version. The real version. Because that's what we're watching in Minnesota is not a simple case of fraud. Not a small policy failure. Not just another headline. What we're watching is a test. A test of whether America still remembers what its government is actually supposed to do. With billions of taxpayer dollars meant to feed children can disappear into a network of criminals and political insiders, that's not a mistake. That is a breach of trust. Trust is the foundation of a constitutional republic. And without it, laws become suggestions, institutions become illusions, and citizens become hostages to the failures of the people who claim to lead them. Minnesota is reminding us of something powerful. Corruption does not begin with a stolen dollar. Corruption begins with people in power choosing silence, choosing comfort, choosing political convenience over truth. That is how a system collapses. Not in one dramatic moment, but slowly, quietly, through 1,000 ignored warnings. Think about the families who depended on that food program. Think about the children who were supposed to be fed. Think about the communities that trusted their leaders. The money was supposed to provide relief. Instead, it provided wealth for the connected and suffering for the innocent. That is not government service. That is government betrayal. And then there is the second storm, the fight over immigration and refugee communities. The fraud scandal has created a fog of accusations and fear. Entire groups are being blamed for the crimes of individuals. That is not justice. Justice demands precision. Justice demands accountability. Justice demands truth without prejudice. But here's the reality people do not want to admit. When government fails to enforce the law fairly, suspicion grows. When public leaders deny obvious problems, distrust spreads. And when criminals exploit aid programs because oversight has been dismantled, entire communities pay the price even when they did nothing wrong. Minnesota is not showing us a division problem. Minnesota is showing us a government problem. And then there's the violence. Streets in Minnesota filled with shootings, disturbances, and fear. Families in St. Paul are hearing sirens instead of safety. Citizens are often asking the same question across the country. Why does it feel like the people responsible for protecting the public are more concerned with defending themselves than defending the communities they represent? The answer is painful, because leadership has forgotten its first duty. A constitutional republic cannot survive on intentions. It survives on action. It survives on accountability. It survives on leaders who are willing to confront the hard truths rather than hide behind political talking points. Public safety is not optional. Oversight is not optional. Protecting taxpayer dollars is not optional. These are the basic responsibilities of a government that claims legitimacy. Yet here we are, watching Minnesota crumble under the weight of ignored warnings and political excuses. Watching billions vanish while citizens are told everything is fine. Watching communities tear at each other because leadership refuses to confront the real causes of the problem. Watching crime rise while the government insists that the streets are safe. I'm going to say this with clarity. Minnesota is not the problem. Minnesota is the symptom. If corruption can happen there, it can happen anywhere. If warnings can be ignored there, they can be ignored everywhere. If citizens can be left unprotected there, then citizens across this nation should be asking the same question. How long has this been going on, and how much more has been buried? A free country does not remain free by accident. It remains free through vigilance, through civic courage, through the willingness of citizens to demand more from their leaders than excuses, more than apologies, and more than investigations that lead nowhere. America must confront the truth that Minnesota is forcing into the open. Corruption must be punished. Fraud must be exposed. Communities must be protected. Government must be held accountable. Citizens must insist on transparency. And above all, leaders must remember that their duty is not to political survival, but to the people who trusted them in the first place. So let Minnesota be a warning. Let it be a turning point. Let it be the moment when Americans decide that enough is enough. We can no longer afford leaders who pretend to care about justice while ignoring injustice. We can no longer accept a system where billions can vanish without consequences. We can no longer pretend that safety is guaranteed when the evidence shows otherwise. This is not just about Minnesota. This is about every citizen who believes in liberty. This is about every taxpayer who deserves honesty. And this is about every family who wants safety. This is about a constitutional republic that cannot stand if its guardians refuse to guard anything at all. It is time to restore trust. It is time to restore accountability. It is time to restore the meaning of public service. And most importantly, it is time to say what the people already know. This nation deserves better. And it will get better only when we demand better. It is the duty of every citizen who believes in the truth. That is the duty of a free people. And that is the duty of America right now. This has been #GoRight with Peter Boykin. For more commentary and full articles and daily updates, please visit GoRightNews.com. You can follow me on Rumble, YouTube, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Gab, Truth Social, TikTok, Facebook, and X, and more. Support the mission at Cash App at the $GoRightNews. Stay strong, stay vocal, stay free, and as always, go right.
Cold wind rolling through the Midwest night. Minnesota waking to a brand new fight. Money disappearing where the children eat. A broken promise echoes through the streets. How did the system lose its way? Who let the truth just slip away? There is a warning in the north tonight. You can hear it if you listen right. Trust is falling like the winter snow. Citizens deserve the truth to show. There is a warning in the north tonight. Voices rising in a crowded hall, pointing fingers trying to blame it all. But the guilty stand in a smaller crowd. Fraud and silence echo way too loud. A nation cannot stand on lies. A people cannot live on sides. There is a warning in the north tonight. You can hear it if you listen right. Trust is falling like the winter snow. Citizens deserve the truth to show. There is a warning in the north tonight. Streets in St. Paul tremble again. Families wondering where safety went. Liberty needs more than pride. on its side. There is a warning in the north tonight, shining cold in the silver light. If we rise and choose what is right, we can bring this nation back to sight. There is a warning in the north tonight. Shifting year by year, borders open while danger grows. A nation drifts where the river flows. We are standing on liberty's last line. This is the moment to realign. If we choose courage over decline, we can rise and hold the line. On liberty's last line.
Who is guarding America when the guard is under fire? Welcome to Hashtag Go Right with Peter Boykin, the show where we cut through the noise and talk about what matters inside a constitutional republic. Today is not just a news rundown. Today is a reflection of where we are as a nation. Our government is confronted with danger at home, conflict abroad, and political games that threaten the very foundation of our liberty. So let us dig in. This is not a quick headline reading. This is commentary that asks the hard questions about what we are becoming as a country and what we're willing to tolerate. We have three stories that connect in ways many people do not see. A shooting near the White House that exposes our failure to protect our own. A brewing showdown with Venezuela that raises questions about priorities. And an election in Honduras that reminds us how often the United States tries to shape foreign nations while ignoring the problems at home. So let us begin with the National Guard shooting and the price of ignoring reality. A man legally allowed into the United States, an Afghan national, shot two members of the West Virginia National Guard only a few blocks from the White House. One soldier has died, and the other fights for his life. This is not just a tragic story. This is a direct question to the American government. What exactly are we doing? For years, the political class promoted the idea that strict vetting is cruel, that border security is harsh, and that enforcement is somehow immoral. They replaced the practical with the performance and called it compassion. Now, a National Guard soldier is dead, not on foreign soil, but in the capital of the United States. Our leaders responded by suspending asylum applications and promising mass deportations, which I think Donald Trump's been doing. But for many, suddenly they remembered that safety is a duty. Suddenly they remembered that immigration is not a symbolic gesture. Might be because we have a Republican, Donald Trump, in the White House now. This tragedy is not random. It should not take spilled blood for common sense to return. I'm sure some Democrats are probably talking at this point oh, well, I was for that. I was for that. Clips have shown in the past that they were all about making sure people were not in this country illegally and bad people were not in this country, Democrats. All until Donald Trump said we had to actually do it, and then everybody was against Donald Trump. A constitutional republic cannot survive its leaders refuse to protect its people. Liberty requires order. Safety is not an optional accessory, and it is the foundation under every freedom we enjoy. This tragedy is not random. It is a result of a system that has been weakened by politics, ideology, and a fear of being called names. Laws that go unenforced are not laws at all. A nation that refuses to defend itself will eventually pay a price. And that paid price happened in front of the White House system. Meanwhile, in Venezuela, airspace tension and the endless temptation to police the world. While we struggle to protect our own streets, the United States is ramping up pressure on Venezuela. The administration declared Venezuelan airspace closed and signaled more aggressive military posture. Naval operations continue, and these are hints of possible land involvement as traffickers shift routes. People support these moves say we are confronting narcotics and defending American interests. Critics warn we are sliding towards another foreign conflict. Now here's the truth from a constitutional republic perspective. You cannot protect liberty abroad when liberty at home is ignored. You cannot fix the world when your own problems go untreated. And you cannot claim to defend sovereignty overseas while allowing chaos at your own border. Venezuela is corrupt. That is not a question. That's not in question. Drug trafficking does harm Americans, and that is undeniable. But foreign intervention is not really the best way to go. It's not exactly leadership. It is often a distraction from deeper domestic failures. I wish the news would cover more of that. Now, if we're going to close any airspace, our border should come first. If we're going to defend anything, it should be the Constitution and the safety of Americans. And when a nation spends more time flexing its military abroad than solving crises at home, it begins to lose sight of its purpose. Power becomes performance. Action becomes inertia disguised as strength. Because America needs clarity right now, not a new foreign entanglement. Speaking of entanglements, let's go to Honduras and the consequences of trying to engineer other countries. Honduras held a presidential election under heavy scrutiny. Fraud accusations, global observers, and pressure from the United States all hover in the background. This is where American foreign policy becomes a paradox. We say we support democracy, but we constantly influence who we should win. We talk about liberty abroad, but we partner with leaders tied to drug trafficking and corruption. And we claim to respect sovereignty, but only when it produces the outcome we prefer. If America truly believed in liberty, we would stop trying to manufacture it overseas. Liberty cannot be exported. Democracy, or whatever, cannot be installed like software. And stability cannot be purchased through endless foreign aid. Every time the United States tries to shape another country, the result is instability that eventually drifts right back over our border. Migration surges, cartel influence increases, economic collapse creates waves of refugees. Maybe the answer is not more involvement. Maybe the answer is boundaries. Strong ones, clear ones, consistent ones. Let Honduras choose its future. Let America clean its own house first. So what kind of nation do we want to be? These are three stories, one pattern. A soldier murdered near the White House. a foreign crisis brewing in Venezuela, an election abroad influenced by Washington. These are not separate events. They reflect a country that does not know its priorities. We must decide what we value. Do we value protecting our people or protecting or projecting power? Do we value borders or global theater? Do we value liberty or the illusion of control? Because a constitutional republic is not sustained by emotion, it is sustained by responsibility. Responsibility to enforce laws, responsibility to secure borders, responsibility to limit government power abroad, and responsibility to treat American lives as sacred, not expendable. We cannot be the world's superhero while our own foundation cracks beneath us. We cannot save other nations while failing on our own. We cannot preach liberty while ignoring the erosion of liberty at home. This is the moment when America must choose who it wants to be: a protector of its people or a performer on the world stage. One leads to liberty, the other leads to collapse. It's time to choose carefully. I'm going to be right back with the hashtag #GoRightWithPeterBoykin full commentary. But before that, remember to share this episode, follow the platforms, support the movement, read the full article on this on GoRightNews.com, and always think clearly, stand firmly, and choose liberty. Stay informed, and always go right. We'll be right back.
The skyline fades, voices rise in the night like a warning wave. Truth cuts through the noise and the shifting lines. A new day calls from the front of the line. Truth lives. Welcome to Go Ride with Peter Boykin. Stand tall, go right. Let the liberty fire ignite.
Remember, we fight for what's right because it's time to go right. Welcome back to hashtag Go Right with Peter Boykin. This is the hashtag Go Right with Peter Boykin commentary. Is America fighting for liberty or just acting like it? Let us step back from the headlines. Let us stop scrolling, stop refreshing, and stop letting every crisis pass through our minds like static on a screen. Something deeper is happening. Something bigger than one attack, one foreign confrontation, or one election abroad. We are watching the slow erosion of a nation that once knew exactly what it stood for. We are watching a government that has forgotten its own job description. And we are watching citizens struggle to understand how the country that was supposed to protect them became the country that puts them second. This is not fear-mongering. This is not sensationalism. This is a reality that shows itself every time a tragedy strikes close to power. Every time our government reaches for foreign influence while ignoring problems at home. And every time liberty takes a backseat to political performance. A soldier died walking near the White House. That should never happen. That should not be possible. That should shake the nation to its core. But instead, it becomes another story that fades after 24 hours or so. Because too many people have become numb to danger, and too many leaders are more concerned about optics than obligation. America was not built on optics. America was built on duty. America was built on responsibility. America was built on a government that existed to serve and protect the people, not to impress them, not to distract them, and not to treat their safety like a public relations problem. We cannot pretend that liberty is safe when the streets near the seat of our own government are not safe. We cannot pretend that the Constitution is strong when the enforcement of our laws is weak. And we cannot pretend that national sovereignty matters when we treat the border like a suggestion instead of a line of defense. Thank God Donald Trump has done a lot of that. But he's only here for a limited time only, just like the Big Mac. Well, not the Big Mac. Well, we wish it was Big Mac. The McRib. And while all this happens at home, our leaders have the energy to close airspace of Venezuela, send ships into foreign waters, and pressure elections in Central America. And I'm wondering, didn't we just get over a shutdown because we ran out of money? They have the time and the money to project power outward, but not the courage to enforce the laws inward. They have the passion for foreign missions, but not the clarity of domestic ones. This is backwards. This is upside down. And this is how nations lose themselves. I mean, UK couldn't concentrate itself. And grand old Great Britain wanted to own everything, eventually lost everything. Here's the truth. You can't lead the world if you cannot lead your own streets. You cannot confront foreign corruption if you cannot confront your own. You cannot protect freedom abroad if you cannot protect freedom at home. And you cannot talk about our republic overseas or democracy overseas while your own citizens wonder if their rights are next on the chopping block. A constitutional republic requires discipline. It requires moral clarity. It requires priorities. It requires leaders who understand that their oath is not to fame, not to polls, not to global approval, but to the citizens who trusted them with power. For most of the case under Donald Trump's administration, that's what's going on. But there's still a lot of people who are not looking out for us. Liberty does not survive on autopilot. Liberty does not survive through speeches alone. Liberty does not survive when the government pretends to act strong while avoiding the hard decisions that actually protect the people. Liberty does survive when leaders enforce the law. Liberty does survive when borders are secure. Liberty does survive when foreign policy is restrained and purposeful. Liberty does survive when the government remembers that its authority comes from the people, not the world stage. So here's the question that every American should be asking. Are we living in a country that defends liberty or a country that performs liberty for the cameras? Are we living in a nation that protects its people or a nation that tells its people they must accept more danger in the name of politics? Every great nation faces a moment where it must decide what it truly is. That moment is here. The choice is not between left and right. The choice is not between parties or personalities. The choice is between reality and illusion. Either we return to the principles that built this nation, or we drift further into a future where tragedy becomes normal and foreign crises become excuses for domestic neglect. I choose liberty. I choose sovereignty. I choose accountability. I choose the vision of America that believes citizens deserve to be protected before foreign interests. And I believe millions of Americans feel the same way. That's what's called putting America first. You can't MAGA without putting America first, people. The path forward is simple, even if it is difficult. Secure the border. Keep securing the border. Enforce the laws. Prioritize American lives. Limit foreign intervention. Restore the meaning of the Constitution. Stop pretending you're doing all that and start governing. A nation that cannot protect its people cannot protect its future. And right now, the future depends on whether we're willing to speak truth to a government that has lost its way. And it's been losing its way for a long time. This is not the time to be silent. This is the time to stand, to speak, and to insist that America returns the principles that made it exceptional. Because liberty is not guaranteed. It must be defended. It must be guarded. It must be chosen. And it must be chosen now. Here's a call to action, folks. For more analysis grounded in constitutional values and liberty-focused commentary, I need you to keep visiting Go Right News. Read these articles. I need you to listen and subscribe. Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Truth Social, X, Facebook, Gab, TikTok, wherever. And I need you to support the platform. Cash App, $, Go Right News. Folks, thanks for tuning in. And don't forget, it's time to go right.
Yeah, city lights falling across the steel. Two soldiers walking with a duty they feel. And then a shot rings out in the shadowed air, and freedom shakes while the people stare. How did the danger get this near? How did the truth become unclear? We are standing on liberty's last line, holding on while the world rewrites the sign. If we forget what we are fighting for, we will lose the country we once swore. We are standing on liberty's last line. Ships move south on a restless tide, foreign storms that we chase with pride. But the streets back home feel a world away, and the cracks in the foundation widen every day. You cannot fix what you will not see. You cannot save what you refuse to be. We are standing on liberty's last line, holding on while the world rewrites the sign. If we forget what we are fighting for, we will lose the country we once swore. We are standing on liberty's last line. We are standing on liberty's last line. This is the moment to realign. If we choose courage